When you study Isaiah chapter 51, one of the first things you might notice is how disjointed it appears to be. There are really two very distinct parts to the chapter. The first 7 verses or so are almost entirely messianic, though there's a lot of application to be made to the circumstances of present-day Judah and their conflict that will eventually come in Babylonian exile. But the majority of that opening of the text largely applies to the era of the Messiah to come and the blessings and the promises that revolve around it. But then when you turn to the second half of the chapter, it moves in a different direction where God speaks to his people and encourages them to rise up and to awaken and to accept the punishment that they've endured and that they're going to endure, and then prepare themselves for the blessings of the Messiah that are to come. It almost seems like the latter part of the chapter 51 should come first and the beginning of the chapter should come last, but that's just the way that the text is arranged. But it begins with the first half dozen or so verses that are very much messianic, starting with verse 1, where it says, "Hearken unto me, ye that follow after righteousness, ye that seek the Lord. Look unto the rock whence you are hewn, and the hole of the pit whence you are digged." Now there's nothing messianic necessarily about that to start with, but it lays a foundation that you'll see as the text continues that points to the Messiah. But the meaning of the first verse is God telling his people to look to your roots, look to your origins, the rock from which you have been cut or hewn, the hole from which you've been digged. Look to your beginnings, which is tied directly to God, how they became a nation strictly by the design and the decision of God. So God wants them to look to their origins to see their relationship in its roots and to turn back to him through that reminiscing. Ultimately, they will turn back to him through the Messiah, through their one who was promised from the beginning of their existence. Verse 2, he says, "Look unto Abraham your father, and unto Sarah that bare you, for I called him alone, and blessed him, and increased him." Look to your patriarch, the father of your nation, Abraham, the mother of your nation, Sarah, the people of faith who believed me, who had confidence in me when I promised that through them I would bless them with a nation, and through that nation bless the whole world with the Messiah. They had faith. In other words, faith in God was the beginning of the Israelite nation. It's that which they're lacking now, a proper faith in God. So he says, look to your ancestors and restore that faith in me. Verse 3, "For the Lord shall comfort Zion. He will comfort all her waste places. He will make her wilderness like Eden, and her desert like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness shall be found therein, thanksgiving and the voice of melody." If you turn back to me, if you find within yourselves faith in me again, then I will restore you to the proper relationship we once had. I will bring you not just to Jerusalem, I will bring you to a place like Eden, that of course being the church of Jesus Christ, the kingdom of the Messiah. I will comfort you in this kingdom. You will find joy and gladness in this Eden. You will have thanksgiving in the voice of melody. You'll be singing and rejoicing all the time in this special place of fellowship between me and you. This of course represents the kingdom of the Messiah, the church of Jesus Christ. Verse 4, he continues, "Hearken unto me, my people, give ear to me, O my nation. For a law shall proceed from me, and I will make my judgment to rest for a light of the people." I will give you a law. Well, they already have a law. They have the law of Moses given to them at Mount Sinai, the law which governed them as a physical nation. But that law is going to be expiring soon when the Messiah comes and institutes his new law, which will govern the world. And so he says, "Hearken unto me, because I'm going to give you a law that will proceed from my mouth of divine origin, and it will be a light to you to help you find your way out of dark places, out of the dark place of sin." Not Babylonian exile, but spiritual exile under Satan's captivity. Verse 5, "My righteousness is near, my salvation is gone forth." In other words, I have the plan of salvation in my possession, and I am launching it like an arrow. My righteousness has been shot out and fired. It's almost there. It has been sent out, gone forth. My righteousness, my salvation. "Mine arms shall judge the people. The isles shall wait upon me, and mine arm shall they trust." The whole world will experience this that I'm sending out. My righteousness that I'm launching forth. My salvation that I'm firing out will be something touched and felt by everybody. not just Judah. So while you can make some direct application to the exile and Babylonian captivity that the nation will experience, ultimately you have to look at the big picture and see that this is talking about the spiritual salvation of all mankind through Christ. Verse 6, lift up your eyes to the heavens, look upon the earth beneath, for the heavens shall vanish away like smoke, and the earth shall wax old like a garment, and they that dwell therein shall die in like manner. But my salvation shall be forever. My righteousness shall not be abolished. It's almost as if God is making sure his people realize that he's not just talking about Babylon. Look to the sky above you. Look to the ground beneath you. Look to your present circumstances. All of it is fading away. This world is temporary. But what I'm talking about is forever. The salvation I'm bringing you is not just Babylonian salvation. It is Satan's salvation. Freedom from sin, not just freedom from exile. I'm going to give you something that will never be abolished, that will never be taken away, that will never fade and wither away, unlike the world and the things around it that will. I'm bringing you salvation. Verse 7, new section begins. Hearken unto me, ye that know righteousness, the people in whose heart is my law, his old law, therefore. Fear ye not the reproach of men, neither be afraid of their revilings, because I am on your side. Listen to me and trust me, and you'll have no reason to fear your enemies in Babylon. The reproach of men, all the revilings of men, you will not have to worry about if you trust in me. Verse 8, for the moth shall eat them like a garment, them being their enemies. The moth will eat them like a garment, the worm, or like a moth, the word is, shall eat them like wool, but my righteousness shall be forever, and my salvation from generation to generation. You notice that God says, I'm going to consume your enemies, and he gives a simile, he gives an illustration to explain his consuming their enemies, and he doesn't say, I'll devour them like a ferocious shark would devour a fish, or I will consume them the way a great snake would consume an enemy, or I'll devour them like a lion. He doesn't give his conquering of Babylon some great and powerful imagery. He says it's like a moth eating clothing. It's small and insignificant and weak and puny, but that shows not how small God is, it shows how small Babylon is. If he only needs to send a moth to consume them, how insignificant must they really be? And so he says to his people, they are tiny and worthless. Don't give them second thought. Certainly don't worry about them and let your worrying lead you out of faith in me. I will consume them. Verse 9. Here really is where the second part of the chapter begins. Isaiah speaks and he calls for God almost on behalf of his people, in exile later on, speaking to God who they think of as having abandoned them, whom they think of as having forgotten them. And so they cry to God, and Isaiah says, awake, awake, wake up, God. Put on strength, O arm of the Lord. I'm calling for God to stir out of his slumber being the time while they're in exile, while he has not forgotten about them, but is leaving them be, is being patient and sitting aside while they suffer in captivity and learn their lesson. And while he is sitting on the sideline, they're crying, awake, awake, God, wake up, stir yourself awake. O arm of the Lord, your expression of strength and work. As in the ancient days, wake up like you did once before. In the generations of old, are you not that which cut Rahab? That's not the person Rahab the harlot. That word means the prideful one, or Pharaoh, as in generations of old, when God stirred and freed his people from captivity in Egypt. When he cut and wounded the dragon, Pharaoh, and the Egyptian army at the Red Sea, as we'll see in the next verse. So God is being called here. He's being stirred up to wake up and free his people from captivity. They want him to free them now, but as we'll see at the end of the chapter, God says, I'm going to be patient. I'll free you when the time is right. Right now, you don't deserve to be freed. Right now, you don't need to be freed. So you're calling me to wake up. Well, I'm going to call you to wake up in just a minute, and we'll see that later in the text. But right now, they're calling for God to wake up and stir and free them the way he did in Egypt. Verse 10. Are you not that which dried up the sea, the Red Sea, the waters of the great deep, and made the depths of the sea a way or a path for the ransom to pass over? You saved Israel from Egypt. Split the Red Sea, let us pass over it. Now do that again, God. Awake, free us now. We've just gotten to captivity. It's horrible. We've been here a week. Let us out. Verse 11. Therefore the redeemed of the Lord shall return, and come with singing unto Zion, and everlasting joy shall be upon their head. They shall attain gladness and joy, and sorrow and mourning shall flee away. God says, I will free you, but not right now. But I will free you. Trust me, you will one day come out of this. My remnant, my redeemed, my whittled down to the core of faithful ones, my remnant redeemed, shall return. And when they do, they will be singing as they approach Zion with everlasting joy. They will have anointed on their heads. They will obtain gladness and joy, and their sorrow and all their mourning, all their sadness will vanish away. It will just scatter with the wind. I will save you, but not right now. Verse 12, I, even I, am he that comforts you. Who art thou, that you should be afraid of the man that shall die, and of the Son of Man which shall be made as grass? You're terrified of Babylon. Here I put you in captivity. You're calling for me to save you, but only because you're scared of what the Babylonians will do to you. Who are you to be afraid of a man? A man is like grass. It fades away and withers and is blown away in the wind. I am the eternal God. I, even I, can comfort you. And so while you're in captivity and while you're suffering, turn to me, and I will give you comfort and peace, and then when the time is right, set you free. Meanwhile, though, you're sitting in captivity, verse 13, and you've forgotten the Lord, your Maker. You have let fear cause you to forget the God who stretched forth the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth. You fear continually, every day, because of the fury of the oppressor. You worry about how ferocious Babylon is, and so you've forgotten my greatness. As if Babylon was ready to destroy you. You just are so sure that Babylon is going to destroy you, eliminate you, wipe you off the earth. I'm not going to let that happen. And as if you were ready to destroy, and where is the fury of the oppressor? In other words, God looks around and says, I don't see any fury. And when I freed you, I will say to you, so where is this great and powerful Babylon you were so worried about? I'm not worried about them. You should be following me and not worried about them either. 14. The captive exile hastens that he may be loosed, and he shall not die in the pit, nor his bread should fail. Again, I will save you. You, my captive exile, will be loosed. And you will not die in the pit of exile. You will have bread that will not fail. I will save you. I will provide for you. I will protect you. Verse 15. But I am the Lord thy God, that divides the sea, whose waves roared. The Lord of hosts is his name. Don't forget about me while you're in there getting punished. While you're sitting in time out, don't forget that I'm here. That I put you there, and that I will bring you out. And I have put my words in thy mouth. I've sent my prophets, Isaiah among them, to prepare you, to warn you, to call you to service, to call you to repent. And I have covered thee in the shadow of mine hand. I have protected my people, that I may plant the heavens and lay the foundations of the earth, and say to Zion, thou art my people. Through you I will save everybody. I have had this plan from before I planted the sky and laid the foundation of the earth. Before I made the sky above you and the ground below you, I've had this plan, and it has involved you. It has been orchestrated and worked out in my mind, and you are an integral part of it. I will not let you die. Now, verse 9 was the people calling for God to awake, awake, get us out of here right now, hurry, get us out of here. Verse 17 is God telling his people to awaken. Awake, awake, stand up, O Jerusalem. No, you the ones who need to wake up, Jerusalem. You which have drunk at the hand of the Lord the cup of his fury, have drunken the dregs, or the goblet, the cup of trembling, and wrung them out. No, you people need to wake up. You, my people, who are passed out, hung over, and lying in the street, knocked out from a night of binge drinking. You've been drinking, not wine, you've been drinking the cup of my fury. You've been getting drunk on angering me and suffering for it. No more. It's time to put that aside. It's time to be faithful again, and then I'll let you out. You've been getting drunk on the cup of trembling. Trembling meaning the pain that comes from being disciplined or spanked. You've been getting drunk. You've been enjoying the punishment that I've been giving you because you love the sin, so you'll take the punishment. Well, now the sin's going to be so great, you won't like the punishment anymore. And I will let it wring you out. I will let it suck the life out of you. so that in captivity you have no one to turn to but to me. Verse 18 is the point there. There is none to guide her among all the sons whom she brought forth. There is no favored son of Judah that's going to rise up to save you from Babylonian captivity. There's no champion, there's no hero, there's no judge that's going to save you. There's none that takes you by the hand of all the sons that she brought up, all the children of Judah that you can rely on. You can only rely on me. You need God to save you. 19. These two things are come unto thee. And really there are two pairs of things. Who shall be sorry for thee? Who is going to pity you after these two things come to you? First of all, desolation and destruction are coming to you. This is the tragedy that will befall the city of his people. Desolation, to be ravaged, to be stripped, all the jewels, all the riches, all the glory taken away. And destruction, you're going to be a broken city, a crushed city. Second, famine and sword. These are the things that will befall the people of God's city. Famine, hunger, suffering in general, and sword, death, execution. These bad things are going to happen to you, and no one is going to protect you but me. 20. Your sons have fainted. They lie at the head of all the streets as a wild bull in a net. Your heroes, your soldiers, to try to stave off the Babylonian attack, they are all dead in the streets. They are dead at the heads of the streets, at the intersections of other streets. In other words, they're either there because they died trying to defend those intersections or because they were trying to run away. The text isn't clear, but either way, they got caught like a bull in the net, and they were killed. They are full of the fury of the Lord, the rebuke of thy God. They have drunk the cup of God's anger by their sinning against him. Therefore now hear this, you afflicted and drunken, but not with wine. Listen to me, you people who have drunken of the fury of God. Listen to my message to you, verse 22. Thus says thy Lord, the Lord, and thy God that pleads the cause of his people. Thus says God, the judge, the jury, the lawyer, and the executioner. Thus says God, the judge that presides over this case against Judah. The jury that determines the guilt of Judah. The lawyer that defends Judah. And the executioner that carries out the punishment against Judah. That's me, that's God. Behold, I have taken out of thine hand the cup of trembling. You're going to suffer and suffer and suffer, and then I'm going to remove the suffering. I'm going to take away from you the punishment and the pain that follows it. Even the goblet of the cup of my fury, you shall no more drink of it. Again, no more punishment. And when they experience no more punishment, that's how they'll know the Messiah is about to arrive, as we'll see in the next chapter. Last verse of this chapter, 23. But I will put it into the hand of them that afflict thee. I will take the cup of suffering out of your hand and put it in the hand of your enemies, the Babylonians. Those who said to your soul, bow down that we may go over. Those Babylonians who mistreated you, who abused you, who forced you to lay down, and who trampled over you like cobblestones of the street. Bow down that we may roll over you. And has laid your body to the ground, and as the street to them that went over. Those Babylonians that mistreated you and abused you, they will take the cup of suffering. They will bear the punishment. They will suffer. But unlike them, you have a reason for living. You have a Messiah that will come from you. Babylon does not. They will suffer until they're no more. That ends chapter 51. It ends kind of on a mid-thought, but it will pick up in the next chapter. Almost right where this left off. But we left off at this chapter with God telling his people, awaken, wake up, stop being so drunken on your own evilness, on your own sinfulness, and turn back to me. But we'll see how that is finished, that thought, in the next chapter, which ends with some of the most vivid imagery of the Messiah that we've had so far. But we'll get to chapter 52 next time. Until then, thank you very much.